at 30 frames per second.
Oh, no!
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale. I'm David Savage. Good morning.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, I'm so blessed to have such an excellent group of specimens for this experiment. I don't know if you could make out in detail my hat, but I've got the official Matrix Resurrections hat in theaters and on HBO Max on. How do you get that? How do you get that? From the studio, of course. Anyway, it's a Tuesday. It's 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time, exactly. And temperature outside of the studio here is currently 19 degrees. And according to my weather app, which you can't really put too much weight on, it's going to get up to a high of 36 today and a low of 27. This is the mid-Atlantic states. If you're north of here, you're going to be basically freezing your you-know-what off. And if you're south of here, you're going to be kind of colder than you've been expecting. I'll get into that in a little while about how the misnomer and how the UN IPCC and the Paris talk and that thing they did in Scotland and the World Economic Forum and all those guys, how they, basically kind of made an honest mistake on global warming, which they changed to climate change after they discovered they were way out of line with their numbers, but how that whole happened and how unfortunately a generation or two are just like they're not backpedaling or letting people understand that they screwed up royally, and we'll get into that and how things are screwed up. Later on in the week, though, we're going to have a warming, what we would call a little bit of a warm-up. Things are going to get into the 40s, and we're going to see some rain on Thursday. Could get up to a high of 45. And it's going to be messy because, as you can see from my camera 2 up there, there's still piles of snow, and the sidewalks still have snow on them. In many, the whole, northern tier of the U.S., and people are still burning coal, natural gas, oil, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the heating bills are going to be out of control, for people. And coming off of the Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, well, even Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve, that whole buying season, holiday season, where people just, put those credit cards out and buy all this stuff and, hey, it's a new year, things are going to be great, right? And then reality sets in. We're going to talk about that today, too. There's a 90% chance of snow in my neck of the woods on Friday, and then the temperatures are going to get back down at night in the single digits. So, brief respite for a couple of days. Just keep in mind that, I think the recommended temperature for serving Heineken beer is going to be the high this week, the highest it gets. All right. As you can see, the title card here, I'm wearing a flannel shirt and, of course, my Matrix cap. And the title of this show is Runaway Inflation, Poverty, Despair, and Dystopia. And I put in chat, time to wake up to reality. And, of course, I put this one of these classic pictures from the Great Depression, a soup kitchen. And, there's two reasons why this is here. Boy, these hats are real comfortable. And it's comfortable for wearing headphones. If you're wearing like real headphones, not those like earbud things that I think are kind of stupid. But I was curious to see if the poverty level went up because there was a Social Security income increase. That's because the cost of living has gone up. So the poverty income level in the U.S., in other words, the level at which if you earn less than these amounts on the screen, for one person, $13,590, and for a couple, $18,310. There were times when I was growing up that if you were making that kind of money, you had a decent job. You were able to get a house, a car, right? Wear some decent clothes and find a woman who'd marry you. Boy, times have changed. If you're new to the show and you see the classic handkerchief, which, by the way, was washed yesterday. And when I do my laundry, I put in like a Lysol, disinfectant on top of the detergent, and I boost it with borax. I'm not sure if borax has boric acid. I keep forgetting to look, see if it does or not. I'm drinking 100% Colombian coffee in my branded ROCKFLUX mug, which we sell at rockflux.com, by the way. There's a link to it there. So feel free to get one for yourself. I've had it, washed it daily, and, everything's on it. It's like my shirts, I wear them, wash them, they last, all that jazz.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Well, the thing was, I got this notification that remember yesterday I was talking about the EBT was the replacement of food stamps. And apparently there's some program. Well, anyway, I got a notification that there was a reduction in the amount of EBT I would be getting substantially, actually, by almost not $25. But I'm not too worried about it because there's some kind of weird state extension thing that's paying, $100 extra, and that goes through till May. Because, we're living in the Great Depression, a lot of us. And, there has been a Social Security increase because of inflation. The cost of living has gone up. They call it a COLA, cost of living adjustment, I believe. Yeah, adjustment is the A, COLA. Ronald Reagan, when he said that word, he had a little laugh. The so-called COLAs, because at the time, Coke and Pepsi, was like the big cola wars were going on in the media, advertising. They were like two of the biggest advertisers on television. And there really wasn't much, they were dominated the market. It was like, Schaefer, Schlitz Light. I think that was the first light beer to do a television. Was it Schlitz Light? Right? And they had that guy, tough guy, cowboy guy, I forget his name, can't think of it offhand. It's on the tip of my tongue, but, this time of the morning. And even though they created it, a lot of people today wouldn't even know that brand. But then it, then it was light beer from Miller and Bud Light. Of course, now it's the landscape in alcohol and soft drinks is so just spread out. Though the companies themselves have owned so many of the brands. Like, I don't know if it's Coca-Cola exactly. I don't want to be, and I don't have one of them in front of me, but Coca-Cola owns one of the popular waters that people drink. I mean, water. They're selling water. It used to be kind of a joke, someday they'll be selling water, right? Over $1 a bottle. And I have a picture of it. If I would have planned, I don't prepare these shows. These, usually, I usually just come up with a concept, an idea in my mind, and then I take it from there. It's like a free flow of consciousness. But I do have a photo I remember taking probably 20 years ago next to a soft drink machine, a pop machine, whatever you want to call it, soda pop, was a water machine for the Aqua something or other, which I think is the Coca-Cola brand. And it had on there $1. And I just thought that, would be a significant photo to take because the idea of, but today people wouldn't even think twice about that. You could pay what, $1.59 for just a bottle of water, right? Water. In some foreign countries, these companies have gone in and they actually have purchased, they own the water, and that includes the rain. I think isn't there one or two places or more in the Pacific Northwest where you can't collect rainwater? They claim that the rainwater is owned by the state or the county or something like that. Well, that's how it is in, some of our great, American colonialists have gone down to places like South America and Africa and stuff, and they've actually laid claim to the water rights. Like the IMF and these different other big national groups, big international banking, cartels, whatever you want to call them. It's like what the Chinese do, the same thing. They've been doing it in Africa and South America too. I'm on a little bit of a tangent, but this will all tie together. They go in and they create some kind of public works project or some ridiculous thing. Like they'll build an airport, a dam, road system, or some kind of manufacturing plant or something weird like that. And they'll give, basically it'll be at like no interest, and don't worry, we'll work with you to pay it off. And then once this so-called infrastructure project is finished, completed, a port or something, for their oil or export or something, then they basically then they go, basically pull one of these things.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
And it's like, yeah, you owe us, so many billions of dollars for that. And, at the going interest rate, it's like basically more than the country, it's more than, the value of the country, the gross domestic product, I think is the term, of the country for 10 years or 20 years in a row. But then the Chinese or the IMF or one of these, the World Bank type of people, these UN, like I say, these fakers, these people, the people that hypocrisy people that have these claim to have moral standards, but it's all a pretense. It's hypocrisy for profit. So they say, oh, don't worry about it. We'll just take, a majority interest in that port or in that pipeline or in your oil that we've, that natural, or those minerals that we've built the mine and set up the mining operation. We'll just take the majority interest in it. And, these are the kind of things that aren't even talked about, on news, because here everything's either Russia again, or it's, politics as pop culture, or the cult of personality on the, on the left side, you've got Russia, Ukraine, right? The Thing, right? The endless thing, the endless disease, and politics, 24/7. And on the other side, you've got the cult of personality, red wave 2022, Trump. And so people don't have a clue about what's going on in the world. And then they have this idea where we're living, you look at this picture here. This is from the Great Depression, obviously, that I have the title card for today's show. And you look at this picture, and these are all obviously people out of work and trying to get a free bowl of soup, something to eat. And you compare that with today's, like the homeless grifter types, living in these, expensive tents, basically, these tent cities. But they're the kind of tents that if the average person wanted to buy, it probably cost, hundreds of dollars. So I've seen some of the tents when, these people who go through the city, they're like $1,000 camping tents for explorers use. I know because I used to cover expeditions. And these people have decent sneakers on and stuff like that. And they call them tent cities and stuff, but they're no way like the Great Depression tent cities. And then there's all these services available to them. And then they're grifters too, that's a whole other part of this whole story that people just don't know. That a lot of these guys are out there making, some make $1,000 a week basically panhandling. Panhandling has become like a gig economy. And I was talking about yesterday, these gig economies. It's like the people that go to thrift stores and they take the first one in and they swoop up all the good stuff and then they sell it on like eBay and these other places, right? And then they drive off in their $60,000 SUV or their Beamer. Yeah. Sorry for doing this stuff in my mouth. Sometimes I do things like this. Anyway, let me get into this thing. It's like weird. My cat did the same thing as it did the other day. It was like spent like 2 hours from midnight till, I don't know, sometime around that time. It was just trying to wake me up and stuff. Plenty of food in its bowl, fresh water. Heck, I'm giving the thing my Brita. I need to get a Brita filter for my water filter. So I've been giving the cat has, so instead I've been giving it bottled water. It's like my cat gets better water than I do. When I make a thing of soup, I just take it out of the faucet. So the thing can't complain, and it gets treats, lots of treats, but it's finicky with treats. I thought all that stuff you hear, a finicky cat. I got a finicky cat. It's healthy. It runs around, does its thing, eats its food. Its nose is cold. That's good. That's what the vets tell you. Everything's fine. But anyway, look at these guys, with their hats and their coats and, and it's an integrated group of people too, See, that's another thing people don't even realize, It's like, especially in the cities, even back then, there's people of all ethnic and racial backgrounds in that crowd, It's, poverty hits everybody. But yeah, one person poverty levels $1,300, $13,500. A couple, it's like 18. If they have a kid, it's over like 20-some thousand bucks. I mean, that's all people make. There was like, in in the 70s, if you had a 20-some $1,000 a year job, that's all you needed to have a house, a car, a wife and money to buy your kids toys and stuff for Christmas and go on a vacation down to the Jersey Shore and or in the summertime for a week or something. It's hard to believe. It's not really that long ago, But the weirdest thing about it is, now, I've been interested in this. There's this thing with this. I'm just going to talk to people because I realize, if you're younger, I feel sorry for you because either, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. If you're under a certain age, more than likely there's going to be some event related to the sun that's probably going to cause, or wreak havoc on this planet. And it might be something as simplistic as a solar flare, CME, something like that. It'll take out the grid, and that it may recover or may not. But it could be something as bad as one of these 12,000-year cycles because we're overdue where this shell comes and it's a near extinction event. Right? And besides, man, we're due for, there's a lot of like what they call near Earth objects out there and, and all this other stuff that, so you can forget about that. Remember Bitcoin and AI and all that stuff. And even if you're into transhumanism and you think you're going to put your consciousness into a machine, what happens when the power goes out? And the backup power goes down. Or a volcano goes up, like, that big volcano that just went off, that one in the ocean, right? These volcanoes put this ash up there, and it basically darkens, just keeps continually darkening the planet. And all you need is, there's been an uptick in volcanism. It's being studied. It's being written in the scientific papers. But again, the news media doesn't cover it because they want to cover some kind of sensational story, or if it's a human interest story, what they call human interest. It's human interest that fits some kind of divisive narrative that they have. Like they wouldn't even probably show this picture where you can see a couple of black men in the crowd. And you don't see anybody like, like treating them or any kind of posturing that shows anything that would make you think, and this would be back in the late 20s, early 30s, that there was any problem with that, right? And obviously these people are, these would be also immigrants, Irish, Italians, Germans, Polish, the Lithuanians, basically a cross-section of, American immigrants from all over. I'm sure there's a problem. I'm sure there's probably, you can't tell, but I'm sure some Latinos mixed in the crowd somewhere. Because that's a thing, when times get rough, people in this country always came together and didn't really care about superficial things and stuff. And that's why I'm against this whole teaching and indoctrination of kids, that they make America sound like it's some kind of divisive place or whatever. Because it's never really been that way. And for children who live in in a city or go to some school somewhere, and a lot of times it's in the suburbs too, where these kids, they haven't really seen it. But a guy like me who's traveled all over this country and around the world a couple of times, it's like they don't know that, how people work together and all of that. They just don't get it because they don't see it. They've never seen it, right? But they teach this stuff and warp the minds of young people. But the same thing goes with this poverty idea and this runaway inflation. And, yesterday when I was saying, when I brought up the picture of, I'm focused on doing everything I can to support our country in the Biden-Harris agenda, and it was like the Build Back Better, and there, two of them are laughing like hyenas. And like I say, don't think I'm just picking them out, because this whole idea of like send money so I could build a social media site. I mean, that's just as freaking bad. But it's like, the picture I have on the screen, and for those of you who may be just listening to this alone, it's a photo of the Great Depression and what you would call a soup line. People lined up outside of a soup kitchen where there's free soup being served. Just a bunch of men of various ethnic, racial, and I'm sure religious backgrounds, just all trying to get some soup because they're starving during the Great Depression. And, the idea is that how the poverty level, I put some Gorilla Tape on my chair. It's helping a little bit. It's not going to last long because my head should be a little bit higher. My head should be up here, like, I think. But, what am I going to do? I need a new roof before I get a new chair. But, yeah, those numbers are high, man. Those numbers are high. And the thing is, like I say, I live below the poverty level. And what I was trying to say is, as far as I understand in my state, if you go on Social Security, or if you're disabled, if you're on disability, disabled veteran or something like that, and you're on Social Security, disability, and things like that, VA, qualified for this, that, the other. There's the safety net is pretty decent. Like, in other words, you don't have to, the way I understand it, I'm going to get confirmation of this today. I got to make some phone calls. It's one of those phone call days. I try to get a phone call copy of I want to see if I can get a visual copy of my gallbladder. You're not having breakfast. And, but I also want to call and see about this Medicare Part B, because supposedly if you live below the poverty level, Medicare Part B is free, is paid. It doesn't get deducted. So, the poor are a lot better off, post all of these, Great Depression, Roosevelt, what people call socialist programs. But, it pulled us out of that, and, the funny thing is, and it's not funny, but I mean, funny as in funny money, that whole thing was caused by the bankers back then. And it was the common person, and not even so much when you say the common man, somebody just thinks of some, wage slave worker or something like that. Basically the people that run a country, because, the people who do the work. But no, it was people from all walks of life. Like in that crowd there, you could have somebody who could have been a CPA, an accountant for a big company. You could have had, for who knows, there could have been a lawyer in there, or a former business owner of a store or something. I mean, it hit bad. So, and the same thing's happening now. But the news media is not reporting it because of like what I put up every day is that, they're just marionettes of the corporatocracy, you see. And the corporatocracy says, demands that they don't talk about it. And then you've got these, hypocrites laughing at us. They're, Kamala Harris, look at them. They're laughing at us. You know that. Their agenda, they had no agenda and they didn't build back better. If anything, think about what's happened. How bad things have gotten in the past year. Right? It's been like a full year now. Right? It's February 1st today. It's like over a full year. The so-called, pandemic is like 2 years. It's really 2.5 years, but I mean, that's like you have to talk to the former head of national security and the former head of the CIA for them to talk about that, which they did openly talk about in a Sky News interview. And, and I think it's still available, archived on the internet, where they said they kind of knew about it in the summer of 2019. This is February of 2022. Think about that. So times are tough for a lot of people, and a lot of people are putting their faith in the cult of personality. In other words, they're hoping that somebody is going to save them. And unlike the concept of like a Messiah, a religious savior type of idea, right? That that is widespread among, many religions. No, it's not that. No, they think someone is going to somehow like save them financially, like improve the quality of their life, do something for them instead of them doing something themselves. I mean, I could have put a lot of different photos up and I could have made like a slideshow of the Great Depression real easily here and shown all the other pictures of people, with signs saying, we'll work, please give my dad a job, kids holding up signs and, and that kind of thing. But these are people who wanted to, and people lined up where there was like, the signs, no jobs available, no one else need apply, right? And, where there were jobs, the line was around the block like you'd see for an iPhone or, in the old days, a concert. But that's, people don't want to work. I don't know what they're up to now, but it's like, last I checked, it was like something like 11 million jobs are available and they're just unfilled. And people who have jobs are just quitting their jobs. And then people are doing these, this remote, working, which is hardly working, right? Hardly working. And then, like I was saying, the gig economy, which is just a lot of scamming going on with that. I mean, there's some decent people out there who, maybe making some kind of, macrame or, whatever it is, what's that, Etsy, things like that. That's cool. That's gig economy too. I mean, I don't count the YouTube thing as a gig economy because, those people rake in so much money that they become like prima donnas and elitists. I'm not monetized and, even if it was, I don't get enough viewers that I'd make any money anyway. It's getting cold in here. I'm glad I put this flannel shirt over top of a nice heavy shirt underneath that. But yeah, it's cold. Sometimes the warmer it is outside, the colder it gets inside. Like, it doesn't seem to make sense. But what happens is when it's really cold, the heater just like almost runs nonstop. But when it's like 19 degrees like it is right now, the house and the items, the thermostat's in this room against a wall over there, and I've got the computer on and stuff. There's a certain generation of heat and maintaining the heat. There goes the coal trucks. We're just in time. We'll be watching a lot of those go up. Feed those electric plants to heat other people's houses and those Tesla charging stations for electric cars. That's from that coal-fired plant in like the mid-Atlantic states and northern latitudes. It's not coming from solar panels. Or bird killing fans in the sky that ruin our landscapes. But I wanted to talk about this dystopia thing. Because, there's a lot of people, they say, like, oh, there's going to be like some kind of civil war, but obviously it can't be geographic because it's not the North versus the South because, different state, red state, blue state, and then within states you've got districts and people are this, that, the other. And they try to create all this divisiveness and talk about this, that, the other. And the fact of the matter is, the real truth, you want to get to the heart of the matter. I was saying to somebody before, a couple days ago. If you want to really get to the heart of the matter is, it's us against them. And you know who us is? All of us. The 330 million Americans against this couple thousand ruling elite. Right? And they hate when people talk like that. And that's why they create divisiveness. Because they figure if we're so busy thinking that, that we're racist or we're against religion, somebody's religion, race, creed, color. I never really could figure out all that. Like, isn't creed like religion, Isn't that the same thing? Like, I always never could figure out race, creed, color, Wasn't like race also color and creed was religion? I don't know. It just seemed, I always never, that expression, that whole thing I always was kind of semi-puzzled at that. I'm sure somebody has some well, actually, there is a differentiation between creed and thing, and color and race is... shut up. The fact of the matter is, the ruling elite are living well, and the rest of us are living like struggling to get by. If the poverty level for a couple is 18 grand or a person is $13,500, all right? And then you compare that with people who make that much money a week or a month. Okay? Like, I don't know what. Yeah, let's just look at something. I'm going to look at something here because, I might as well get into it. This is a free flow of consciousness show today. It's the usual.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I'm trying to find See if somebody's listed this. Fact check. I'll show you this. I just want to make sure I can find the right thing. Sometimes I can't find what you want to find. Fact check. Financial disclosures do not show Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a millionaire. Well, I don't care if she's a millionaire or not. I remember when she first got elected, she was like, well, how do I pay for my apartment and stuff? But anyway, so now one post which reads, 2 years ago, AOC was broke when elected. Now she's $1 million net worth. How does that happen? Well, she's in Congress. These guys are trying to like disprove this thing, but it doesn't matter. As stated here in a 2018 report by Congressional Research, excluding the speaker and minority leaders, House members earn $174,000 a year. Okay? Now, I think that did go up, but let's take that. Sorry for the way the screen looks here. I got a calculator here. My solar calculator battery, it's another thing about solar, only works. So 174,000 divided by 12 is $14,500 a month. So that's 1,000 more than the poverty level is AOC's. Look at those trucks. Look at them. Coal trucks, 25-mile-an-hour speed zone. So not just AOC, not to pick on her, you know, because everybody picks on her, you know. When she was in high school and she did that dancing video, that's how on the roof, that's how she got elected, because she had kind of a nice body, you know. But now she's like a lot of these women actresses and stuff, you know, they get this like heroin waif arms, like their arms look like sticks almost, like, you know, they get real bony, and it's like, you know, it's not really attractive. You know, somebody ought to tell them that. It's like, I don't know how, you know, what they're trying to do, but it's like the female form, you know, has not changed. You know, the male and female form, you know, what is, and yeah. That skinny arm look is not sexy. I don't care who, unless somebody's a pervert. You know, it's like somebody has a foot fetish or something, right? But when she did that video on the roof, you know, she looked pretty hot. Everybody knows that. You know, you could pretend you didn't think so, but that's how she got elected, right? What do you think they released that thing for? You know? She wasn't against that. But I've seen pictures of her lately, and she's like got these like bony arms, like this thick or something. You know, like. So there's just an example. So a member of Congress, just someone like her, a run of the mill. Remember, she's a newbie. She's only been in there like 2 years, right? Was it 2 years, or is she in there 4 years? I lost track. 4 years, maybe? It's just her second term? I don't know. I forget. I don't really care. But whoever gets elected this year, because Congress is like isn't there like a 2-year term or something like that? I don't even know anymore. Because I don't care. I used to know all this stuff. I know senators are 6 years. New window. Congressional term of office. Members of the House of Representatives serve 2-year terms. Yeah, I was right. And are considered for re-election every even year. And this is an even year. Okay. So she's up for grabs too. Literally. And so, yeah, and the fact of the matter is, whatever that Reuters article, whatever they're trying to say is, yeah, you know, you get in Congress and you have all this, it's insider trading. the fine is something like a couple $100. Like if it's brought to the ethics committee or ethics, whatever they have that that oversees wrongdoings among Congress, members of Congress, senators, or House representative people, the fine is something like $200 some. So like when Nancy Pelosi's husband, when they were insider trading and she was calling Tim Cook from Apple, and then they made some kind of trade and made X amount of million on it. Well, first of all, that never made it to any ethics committee or anything like that. So they just got away with it. But even if it would have, she would have just gotten like a $200 fine for making millions of dollars. And I don't mean to pick just on Pelosi or the Democrats. I mean, Rand Paul, Republican, libertarian, whatever you want to call him. He made more money on his stock trades than the Pelosi's. So it's both sides. It's the whole. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, it's a corporatocracy, and they pull the strings of the media and politicians, and the way they manage to do that is primarily through money, But back to this, just using any congressperson as an example, and we'll just use the AOC thing. She's making $14,000 a month, and the poverty level is $13,000 a year. So she makes more in 1 month than the average person, poor person, does who's living in poverty. And, the amount of people, you can't trust government statistics, so I don't even know why I'm looking this up. How many people are living in poverty in the U.S.? According to this, in 2019, which is ridiculous because it's a couple of years ago and things have gotten worse. Let's see if there's an update here. All I see is the 2019 statistic. Well, I'll show you so you don't think I'm playing some kind of game. Let's look at this 2019 chart here. All right, sources include United States Census Bureau. All right, but you can see 2019, 43 million, So I would say probably, considering it's 2022 and times have gotten all the people who lost their jobs and stuff like that, right? So I would say it'd be fairly, decent, fairly, legitimate to say that there's probably somewhere between 45 and 50 million people in the U.S. living in poverty. Think about that. 50 million people living in poverty. That's pretty sad. It's really sad. And that's a lot of people. And so at best, and those numbers you can't necessarily believe because they were saying them back in, several years ago in the previous administration when there was really full employment. And we know now that people are just unemployed. But they say there's approximately 150 million people, that's like the workforce. And so what I'm getting at is that if you there's 330 million people in the country, so more, less than half of them are working, right? And, like a sixth of them are, I got to take a quick break. But what I'm going to do is give you, play a little track here until I come back. A couple of my hit songs. Not that one. Not that one. I'll be right back.
How we're supposed to pay for this and that. And they will charge us for everything else. How do they expect us to act when they're kicking us down to the ground? How are we supposed to live? Can't afford the rent. What are we supposed to believe when we know they're telling us lies? What are we supposed to do? Got no jobs or place to go. Where are they taking this country? What are they doing to the land? Bigger than dead, better than dead. Enough of the bull-line crap. Bigger than that, better than that. Enough of the bull-line crap. All the politicians are shoveling it.
It's not hard to see that things have gotten from bad to worse everywhere. Humanity's clearly on a path of self-destruction and hopelessness. Not that things haven't seemed dreadful before. Ancient barbarism and slavery, the plague, the Holocaust, and all those wars. But amid the horror and despair in days gone by, there are always places and people in other parts of the world that were unaffected. Places for the fortunate to escape to. People who were welcoming and who cared. Now we live in a world of desperation where billions of people are suffering. Poor, sick, enslaved, just downright unhappy. Those few who are merry and live well do so by taking from the rest of us. And those who are accepting and content are as guilty as those who are in charge. Yeah, there's no happy ending this time, because there's no place to run. No new country, no land of opportunity. Each year it just gets worse for more and more people. And only those who are in pain seem to see through the lies. It's as if life is a video game and we're just characters in a virtual world. We have little control over limited lives, while the players are having all the fun. In fact, some believe that the universe is a simulation, and that's the way it is. And perhaps they're right. But now that we are starting to realize that it's all a game, the game is about to end. In fact, it's because we're starting to realize that it's a game, that it's all about to end. Game over.
Like a Nagasaki sunrise after the bomb, there's a haunting beauty in nature, but not in man. Evil dwells in the blackened souls of the order followers and bureaucrats and the crowds that cheer them on. But what kind of madness leaves such death and destruction back then and today? How many Nagasaki-like sunrises must there be before the masses are awakened? Heroes don't carry guns or kill for the suited cowards in state houses and corporate boardrooms. True heroes teach, they heal, they build, they think and they create and they love. We've created a culture of violence, from the speeches by politicians to the pop culture icons. People now wallow in the glory of destruction, and their humanity has been traded for paper money and objects of diversion and justification. Though with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it still can be a beautiful world.
Anyway, sorry about that. Let's see. We were 4 minutes, 7, and we're almost 10 minutes I was gone. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Hopefully you fast forwarded. Hopefully a bug didn't use that as an opportunity to get into my coffee. So, and I'm sure some people might have been smart enough to just fast forward. I do that sometimes. You can see the droid in the So, poverty, dystopia, runaway inflation, poverty, despair, and dystopia. I have a thing called Despair, which is the one I should have played. And if you bear with me, I'm going to play a little bit of it since I'm going to get copyright hits. And I don't know, it's my show. You're along for the ride. Listen to some of the lyrics to this. This was like kind of a poem that got a few awards, within some poetry circles. One of my own.
There's an overwhelming feeling inside, an itching anxiety you can't hide. The stress of life and cost of living, it eats at your body and entire being. You try diversions, media and gaming, but it's always there as an underpinning. Others downplay it and rationalize it, but you know they're just concealing it. Despair, the plague of our culture. Despair, where the greedy and powerful are vultures, feeding on everything we do, enslaving us so they can pursue. A life without despair, only for the chosen few, the vampires and succubus who prosper on us. You try to fight it, you self-medicate. You try to beat it, pray and meditate. You try to get help and prescription drugs, but the next day you're victimized by the thugs. There's no escape from the terror. The propagandists say you're in error. They weave and spin and promise better, but in the end you're left in squalor. Despair has destroyed our culture. The greedy and powerful are vultures. They feed on the fruits of our labors and keep taking more without a care. Our lives are filled with despair when all we want is to be happy. Despair, won't someone set us free? No more despair for you and me.
Yeah. Despair. Think about that. And that's a lot, and that's what a lot of people see, and I just did this vocal booster for that, was supposed to be for that song, but it almost seemed like it affected my entire microphone. So I don't know. I just try to change that back to nothing. Anyway, for those of you just tuning in here,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And the conversation, and obviously this chair has sunk again, despite my efforts yesterday. So it's like a lost cause. It's too cold out in my garage, which has become my workshop, for me to go and create some sort of, pole, something to wrap around the thing to prevent the pole that the chair sits on, the adjustment that allows it to go up and down, because it has one of those things where you can adjust the height. And like I say, this chair is over 20 years old. And any kind of moving part, especially, it's amazing that it just started getting bad in the last year or so, which, after 20 years. Because normally stuff they make today, you get anything with a moving part, you're lucky if you get 5 years out of it. I changed the casters on this chair 10 years ago. I still have a couple extra, but I don't have a problem with those. I guess the newer ones I bought were superior to the original. Yeah, but that, despair. And so you get 50 million people living in poverty, roughly. So that brings you to 200 million. So that leaves 130 million, say, people in the country. Right? And so, it's this thing that I'd like to do with these shows, because I just take you along on the ride with me, because I'm curious as you are, and we're just trying to discover among ourselves how many people are retired in the U.S. Let's see if there's a statistic. Nothing came up. According to the U.S. Census, here, I'll give you that number. You might as well let you see everything I see, even though it's weird. According to the U.S. Census, there are 40 million residents 65 years and older. In the 2010 census, there were 54 million. In 2010. In July of 2019, there were 54 million. And I don't know what the current one. How many people are retired in the U.S. in 2021? They're about 46.9. I don't know. Those numbers don't seem to jibe, right? How many people are retired? So let's round that to 50 million too, okay? Let's try to make some sense of it all, like that song. So you have 50 million people living in poverty, 50 million people who are retired. Now, a lot of those retired people are probably living in retired, so there's some crossover there. 150 million people working, right? And there's your population. And then there's the hidden people, like the couple million people that came in over the border last year and over the past several decades and stuff. The invisible people in this country. And there are a lot of invisible people, they're just not aware of. They hide, they don't pay taxes, or they're, migrant workers. They come in, they come out, they do this, that, the other, My one tooth is sensitive right there. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Matrix hat. It's pretty interesting. I didn't buy it. Promo hat.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
My coffee's not heating up. I don't know what's going on out there. Look there's a big giant tractor trailer in front of my house. Coal truck. No, it's a garbage truck. Pick up my garbage. Stop. They best have picked up my garbage. I don't think they did. Like they didn't see it. That would suck. Unless this was one of those days of, where they have like recycled and one truck picks up recycled and the other one picks up trash. The things you got to worry about when you're a homeowner, goofy little things like that, And what do you do with your garbage? I don't have a garbage can. I just put it out and I double bag it. But it's wintertime and there's animals out there starving and freezing and stuff. So it's not like I could just put it on my porch and wait till next week. You know what I mean? Because I don't have a can to put it in to preserve it from animals like gnawing through it. And I just have like raw garbage all over my front porch. I can't bring it in the house because it's garbage and it's been. I hope they didn't pick up my garbage. That truck didn't pick up my garbage. I had it there. You know, they should have seen it. I'm on the list. Okay. Well, now you understand. It's the little things in life that sometimes stress you out. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, folks. So I just want to continue with this idea here. So, you know, people who think that there's like I was talking about people putting faith into some cult of personality person to save them. But unlike some religious idea, you know, the Messiah idea, you know, it's more of like, it's just personal because it's not metaphysical, spiritual, it's basically materialistic, right? And it has to do with lifestyle and living the life that you see on TV or live how the other people live. Years ago, they used to say keeping up with the Joneses. That was the expression. You don't hear that too much anymore. But it's like, you know, MTV Cribs or something weird like that. You know, the idea these people show off this lifestyle and everyone wants that, you know. You know, and somebody has 6 cars, a 6-car garage. There's a lot of people have like 3-car garages. Imagine that. And they live in these neighborhoods, you know, with the cul-de-sacs, you know, and they've got these aluminum sided houses, basically, big yards, and they have to mow their lawn with one of those sit down mowers. And this is the sign this is the sign of success, you know, by a lot of people. Considered a sign of success. There's a garbage truck, I think, turning around the block. I hope that guy comes. Let's see if they stop in front of my house. No. They best have picked up my trash, man. I could always call them. That's a new thing today, is like you have to call and complain. It's bad enough that you get crank calls, like I was talking about yesterday about the do not call list and stuff, but nobody pays attention to that. It's like spam. But if you want anything done, you have to call and you get chat bots and, you know, and you go through 3 or 4 different levels and you still don't like accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? Like I got rid of DirecTV a couple of years ago. And I paid my final bill online. You know, it was paid, went back to it, checked it, 0 due, returned the equipment, got the receipt from the UPS stores, which is, I think they use as their official, like, return place. I had the number from the store, the receipt, the serial number of the device, the whole 9 yards, right? And then a couple months later, I got a bill for like almost $200 for DirecTV services. So I called them, I did a chat with the chat bot, and I put in all the data and the information. I had to type in even the long number, the serial number and the number of the UPS store that took it, and the date and all that stuff, the receipt. And it said, okay, fine. And then then the next month I still got it. So then I called, I spoke with somebody, and they said, okay, we'll take care of that. Yeah, I see. Yeah, clearly. And then I got something. Then I was starting to get something in the mail, like this collections thing. And so I made copies of the receipt of the return stuff and the final bill being paid and all that kind of stuff and sent that to them. And I thought, well, that's finally got to take care of it. And about a year later, and currently right now, you know how you get, I only have one credit card. I figure one credit card just for emergency purposes. Because I don't need that. I don't play that game anymore. I'm not worried about that. So I get a free credit report with my credit card. And I noticed my credit rating dropped down. Okay. And so on this thing, you look at your credit report, and this DirecTV bill is on there as delinquent, unpaid, blah, 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 reported to the credit agency. And at this point, at this juncture, there's nothing to do. I mean, there's no one else to call. I mean, you could go through, see what I mean? And so it's like, I guess you could like try to get in, deal with Experian or whatever there's like 3 or 4 credit reporting agencies. I don't know which one this one was, but that's the only name that comes to mind, but I don't even think it was that one. And so I basically said like, well, screw you. I don't need credit. I don't want credit. I own my house. I have a house. I have a credit card. They're not going to take it away from me. It's like, so what? Okay. You win through stupidity, right? Whatever game you're playing, whatever kind of I don't know, ambulance chasing, these lawyers that got involved, couldn't get jobs somewhere, so they get in jobs as collection agencies, right? And, Congress is so corrupt that they passed these little amendments on bills that allow people to use magistrates and to collect on debts that are unsecured, which prior to that you couldn't. In other words, it's an unsecured debt. But now it's not, and they could take you to court, and the sheriff will come to your door, but the sheriff gets paid by the collection agency, so it's not like, it's really a weird thing, but it could be embarrassing as hell if a sheriff comes to your door to deliver some kind of thing, right? No, your neighbors, ooh, wow, wonder what they did. No, I don't care about that. And they didn't do that with me in this case. They just put it on my credit thing. But it's like, this ties into this whole poverty level and this whole thing and dystopia in America and some of those songs, if you listen to the lyrics, if you didn't fast forward before. And despair, people living in despair. And I'm not talking about the people in those mountain climber tents in L.A., and San Francisco, who are just crapping on the sidewalks for no reason other than they just want to be pricks. Because, they obviously, I've seen interviews with too many interviews. I mean, it's not one. I'm not basing this on one. And I used to go to San Francisco when I lived in L.A. We used to go up there, I told you, for Mac World and all that stuff. Was into the Silicon Valley thing. I'm like one of the pioneers of the internet. All right. I just live the way I do because I choose to. It's like I have on the bottom. Freedom is fun. I want to be free. So I live at the poverty level. Because there's a certain level of freedom at that level. You don't have to file IRS taxes. You get free health coverage. And it's not like I'm like a drain on the economy or something like that. That's how some people look at it. And I try to explain this to people. I'm saying, no, since I was 16, I paid taxes. I worked for companies, and I had my own companies, and I paid people salaries, and I did all these kinds of things. But at this point in my life, I do this. I've written 10 books and 50 songs, but nobody bought them, so I live at the poverty level. Thanks to you. Right? Thanks to you, my loyal listeners. You know? I live at the poverty level. Because of that, I get free health care and some little meager food assistance. But I'm free. So in the grand scheme of things, when I think about it, it's like, yeah, I'd rather be free. So I got my place. Here I am. I have a leaky roof. Can't fix it. Can't afford to fix it. But, you know, I got this thing to pump the water out of these collection buckets I have underneath the leak. Maybe eventually I'll get it fixed. I don't know. See, the problem I have is I've put this up before. My house is too tall. I live in a small house, but it's like it has an attic that is like the third floor, and then there's a roof with like a secondary kind of mini attic over top of that. Like it's what's called the Dutch Colonial. If you would buy my book, Then What? I actually have a picture of a similar Dutch Colonial in it. I could show it to you. Let me see. There's a game over hat I usually wear. And you can see my book Codex here too, which is another book you should get. This is the Then What, which is also over there. This isn't my specific house. All right. But it gives you an idea. Okay, so imagine if you cut that house in half. You see where the front door is? All right. Cut it in half. That's my house. I live in a Dutch Colonial, but it's not that wide. In fact, the front door would be at the side, right? It looks like a barnish type of thing. That's how they built this, because my footprint is only like about 19 feet wide. You know, and the front of my house is only like 19 feet, but my yard goes back like 190 feet. That's how I have this thing back here. I'll show you. You know, I have a big yard, and that's a detached garage at the end of my yard. But as you can see in this house, there's a second floor. And then there's like an attic, and then the roof there's like a roof atop of that, like kind of. And mine even seems to go taller than this, but this is like kind of the Dutch Colonial. This is like a Sears type of house. People used to buy these out of catalogs. This is in my book. See there? This is just free flow of consciousness in a book form too. My house is the Dutch Colonial model that I believe originally purchased from Sears and Roebuck Company. 100 years ago. My book. Get it. I'm selling it. I think it's like $9.95 or $12.95. Get the print version because you want the print version. It might be only $9.95 too, because I think I try to. I never go higher than like $12.95 on these. I try to keep it real cheap. If you have Amazon Prime, you get it free. So for like $10 or something, you get my book. There's a thing in there to help you with your budget and get your life together, and it's like all kinds of neat stuff. It's a good companion for these shows. Then What? If you're listening to this as a podcast. The book's called Then What, and my previous book is called Codex. But you just go to Amazon, and look for Tony Caravan books. And I've got 10 books for sale. I just recommend at least getting the last two. Or go to my site, rockflux.com or TonyCaravanLive.com, and there's links to them. I don't care. Either way,
This is insane.
There's no reason for me to have played that. So, back to this insanity, and I'll be ending this thing in a little bit. Considering the numbers that I, threw out there about the number of people in poverty, the number of people, like they lie about unemployment numbers, right? Because no matter how you look at it, I mean, you could break it down, if there's, in reality, if there's maybe 120,000 people maybe who are working, it's not 150, right? It's maybe 125 at best, something like that. All right. And, a job is, it's questionable what is considered a job. So even if it was 150, it could be somebody basically living at the poverty line. They're supposedly, like in the state where I am, they're going to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour. Okay. So let me see my solar calculator, which doesn't work unless it's okay. So $12 times 40-hour week. That's if you worked a 40-hour week. It's $480 times 4 weeks in the month is $19.20 times 12 months is $23,040. Is that right? Hold on a second. $12 times 40 hours is $480. Times 4 is $19.20. So you make like $2,000 a month, right? So times 12 is $23,000. That means a person, imagine that. If you work as a busboy, I mean, I worked as a busboy when I was $16. When I was 16, I worked as a stock clerk, putting boxes and crushing boxes in the back of a Rite Aid store, making $1.65 an hour. $1.65. These guys in this picture, they're lucky. Those guys are lucky if they make a quarter an hour or something, if that. A lot of times they get paid by the week. Guys would make like $10 a week or ridiculous amount, nothing. Of course, a loaf of bread cost a nickel. But what I'm saying is things haven't changed all that much. The prices of stuff have just gone up. So if you're man, if you have a job just working as in some simple store, washing dishes, free spirit, putting dishes in a dishwasher, hanging out in the back room, listening to a radio or with your earbuds on, right? Joking with the guys in the kitchen, you're making $12 an hour. That's $24,000 a year. That's twice the poverty, almost over twice the poverty level, almost twice the poverty level. I don't know. And nobody wants to work those jobs. So I don't even have an answer for that. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's like I say, some of these numbers you look at and they just like, they surprise you, and they want to take it up to $15 an hour, which would take you up to like $30,000 a year job. When I was growing up, there was like doctors' salaries were like 30 grand. Starting salaries, 30 or 40 was like 40,000. I mean, this is like, you know what I mean? I don't understand what's going on. And they're just going to make this money out of thin air, right? It's just funny money. digital cloud currency, right? Like, I don't get it. I don't really get that. So, what are all those people doing in those tents when they could get a job and make $20-some thousand a year? Right? You know, on the streets and crapping on the streets. Who'd want to do that? Ugh. Right? See, I think the country's over. I think we've witnessed, this is the downfall. I think Western civilization's fallen. I think this is a former United States. I think we're living in dystopia. And I think there are these people with 3-car garages and living in these gated communities and certain apartment buildings that are holding on to certain jobs where they're making the 6 figures or 7 figures in some cases. And the ruling elite, the billionaire class. And they're just, they're out there and they're the ones who are showing up at these rallies, because who else could be like afford that kind of thing? And I don't know really what they want. Right? Like, what does a person really want? Like, just to be happy. I mean, this money and power thing, I don't get it. Or what? Lower taxes or something. I mean, these are like intangibles, It's like, if you want to lower your taxes, or lower your cost of living, get my book and like make a budget out and figure it out and just live within your means. And happiness is, like I said, is a state of mind, just like freedom is a state of mind. So I think there's a lot of people just wandering around. And then you have these people at the top that are trying to divide people, like I was trying to say earlier, and that's what I wanted to finish on, is the reason they're trying to create this false diversity, right? Pitting people against each other, by the color of their so-called color of their skin or something. People who intentionally using the word skin, have no skin in the game. In other words, the vast majority of people who live in the United States today, their grandparents or great-grandparents didn't come here until like after the Civil War period, slavery and all that stuff. And most of those people worked, that you can't say, oh, well, it's Jim Crow, or they were like, it's like, no, you don't understand. You talk to the Irish and the people, the kids were working in the mines, at, 13, 14, 15. And then the people who worked in the mines and these factories, they had these things called the company store. And so you'd get paid and you'd get like credit at the company store and stuff. You were living like, that was slavery. That was real slavery too. So the immigrants that came over from Europe that just happened to have like pale faces, whatever you want to call it, and they're trying to lump into it and say, get down on your knees because you're guilty of slavery or, the 16 whatever something project 400 some years ago that was the British and the Dutch, which, I'm not going to get into that, but that's what Independence Day was about. We fought to kick the British out of here. The British are not our allies. I'm sorry, my friends, right? But, Britain has been no ally to the U.S. They weren't our ally in World War I or World War II. We saved the British asses in World War II. If anything, the British should, the Queen of England should come over here and bow down before us, you see? Because she wouldn't even exist if it weren't for our ancestors, these pale-faced European ancestors who came here after the Civil War and slavery and who worked and who joined the military and, got killed or blown to bits and handicapped and stuff, all to save those people, that were responsible for things. Like I say, Black Lives Matter and all these other people, 1619 Project and all this teachers union in the US, you need to go over to England and do your protesting and teaching and stuff, because you're targeting the wrong population, right? The vast majority of Americans have no skin in that game whatsoever. And it's the ruling elite today, the billionaire class, that actually do have ancestors who made money on that. And they have no relations to me or the average American or the average person living and working in this country. It's another one of those big, fat lies by the corporatocracy and the media. Not that one. But, that's preposterous. Politics is preposterous. But, yeah, the true marionettes are the media and the politicians, man. So, anyway, I just thought I'd bring you this because a lot of people don't know this. We covered some facts. Excuse me, I didn't mean to do that.
Really funny. Really funny.
Yeah, we laugh at stupid, silly things here.
Okay.
I know. But anyway, you get what I was trying to say.
Good morning.
Anyhow, it's a brand new month. It's February 1st. 6 a.m. I'm live. Nobody's watching, but you're probably watching this on the playback. Thanks for watching. Visit TonyCaravanLive.com or ROCKFLUX.com. Get one of my books or go to Great Solar Stuff and get something to help yourself out through power outages, because I didn't get into it, but, we're back into the cycle of cold. I said I was going to talk about how they made a mistake with the climate, when they changed global warming and then things that didn't work out, then they changed it to climate change. And now they're trying to blame nor'easters on, climate change or CO2. And they don't understand that those of us who've lived long enough know that we're just back into this cycle. This is the way it was when I grew up. And so, welcome to the real world, people. Everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. You can get those shirts, hats, hoodies, and stuff. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.